Hi, this is David Quilly again, and today we're going to be talking about the problems with healing sexual abuse. We know that Sigmund Freud, way back at the beginning of the 20th century, published a scandalous report that a significant percentage, up to one-third of his female clients he discovered using hypnosis, up to one-third of his female clients had experienced some kind of sexual abuse in their childhood or adolescence, and maybe 20% of the boys he was seeing as well. Well, this kind of controversial statement was not acceptable to the psychotherapy community of Sigmund Freud's time. In fact, he was forced, like Galileo, he was forced to recant, and instead came up with the Oedipus complex as an alternative theory that, well, maybe children just fantasize about having sex with their parents. Maybe that's what's going on. Well, that was perhaps all that Sigmund Freud could come up with at the time, given that no one in the Victorian age wanted to look at sexual abuse of children and adolescents. It didn't matter that there were 10-year-old prostitutes in every street corner of London. Nobody wanted to look at that. Now we've discovered, through both hypnotherapy and psychotherapy protocols, we have discovered that, sure enough, about one-third of your female clients and about 20% of your male clients are themselves victims of sexual abuse. Yeah. And this is not without consequences. And say, it'd be one thing if it just happened and we could ignore it because it doesn't have any consequences. But that's not the case. Anyone who's been a victim of sexual abuse, including those who've been victimized by political and economic figures, Hollywood figures here in the 20th century, they know what consequences they have had to live with. And it's so much worse when they are a child being molested and incested and abused by a family member. Because the family should be the one place where a child is safe. So let's take a look at what those consequences are. Anger at men, distrust of men, distrust of intimate relationships with men. Women learn very quickly after they become victims of sexual abuse, especially in the family context. They learn very quickly not to trust any man, not to believe in love or sexuality as anything but torture. Many women, in fact, wind up figuring out, well, I guess my body's a commodity, I might as well sell it to the highest bidder. A recent study of women in San Francisco of sexual workers in San Francisco discovered that 100% had been sexually abused as children or adolescents. They literally have been taught that their body was a commodity, and so they wind up working in the sex industry. So denigration of one's own body and allowing it to be sold and used is one consequence of sexual abuse. Being unable to trust men or enter into a true, intimate, loving relationship. And of course, sex, which has become, thanks to this abuse, a terrifying reliving of a horrible trauma. This becomes yet another casualty of the sexual abuse survivor's life. Which a sexual experience, which most of us experience with a loved one, as joy and heavenly and blissful and wonderful. For the sexual abuse survivor, it is often an ordeal which they endure for the sake of what they hope will be something called love, something they often don't understand. So we see that a lot of scarring takes place for people who are victims. And this is the point that Sigmund Freud made before he was silenced. He said sexual abuse is a terrible crime against humanity. Now we are beginning, not something that we can be ignoring, not something that children forget about, not something you can do because they're little and you're big. No. It is a terrible violation that needs to be healed. And my hope is that with so many women coming out now, including President Trump's survivors, that we can begin to take action against this chronic problem. But as a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, your job is to help clients recover from this abuse. And the best way to do that is what I call the dramatic rescue mission. Thousands of people over my 40-year career have experienced the rescue mission for sexual abuse incidents. And there is nothing like it. I've had a number of them say to me, David, you saved my life. Now I'm capable of love. Now I'm capable of sexual fulfillment. Now I can begin to trust men again thanks to you and thanks to this simple process. The rescue mission requires that we go back in trance to the time that the sexual abuse occurred. Now, rumor has it in the field of recovered memory therapy that most of these memories are suppressed and need a lot of searching to find them. Well, I have not found that to be the case. I find that if you go in there searching for sexual abuse memories, well, you may find them, but they aren't necessarily real. My clients who have been sexually abused almost 90% of the time remember that it happened. They've just been trying to downplay it for a long time. Only this time, we're not going to downplay it anymore. We're going to fix it. So the first thing we need to do is walk into that scene, let the client describe the scene, experience a few seconds of the original pain. Here's what's happening. Here's what he's doing. The client will tremble with fear, sometimes feel waves of disgust or rage flowing through them. Only this time, I'm going to bring in the adult self and arm the adult self if needed. Bring in extra helpers if we need it. Oh, he won't listen to me, but who would he listen to? Oh, he listened to the sheriff. The sheriff was his best friend. Well, bring him along. We bring in the adult self, we bring in weapons, we bring in helpers, and we do whatever is necessary to stop that abuse. And we do it, by the way, with our bodies. Sometimes it's necessary to beat the abuser, to kick the abuser, to scream at the abuser, to make them stop. After all, most of them, they feel like they have the perfect right to do this. These girls just like it. Besides, I get to do whatever I want because I'm a billionaire. Whatever their excuses, they know they get to do whatever they want. And you and your client have to stop them. We have to stop them politically, but we also have to stop them in the inner world. And that means doing it with the body. Grab a pillow, shake it, hit with a bat, kick with both feet, kick that person off of your body. Sometimes we may even have to perform what I call the Lorena Bobbitt technique. Some of you may be familiar with it. Back in the 1990s. The simple version of that story is sometimes we have to chop off the offending organ and remove it completely. So my clients unlike Lorena Bobbitt, my clients like to put it in a blender to make sure it is completely destroyed. Or in some cases, just put it in a pickle jar and promise to return it when Grandpa knows how to use it proper. Now, there's all kinds of things we can do with anger release. But remember, it must be done with the body because it happened to the client's body. So talking about it, here's what happened. Here's what I'd like to do. Here's what I wish I could do. Here's what I could imagine doing. Doesn't cut it. And I'll tell you why. Because your client was not sexually abused in their imagination. At least I don't think so. If a client says to me, well, my father kind of threw me up against a wall and tore off my blouse, he didn't do that in the etheric realms. He didn't say, close your eyes and imagine this. No, he did it to her body. So her body's going to have to give it back to him. I know this doesn't sound like forgiveness. We all love forgiveness. I love forgiveness too. In fact, I think I did a speech recently about forgiveness on video. We'd like to do forgiveness, but I remember one client said, well, David, instead of my grandfather molesting me, why don't we just play a game of tiddlywinks, he and I, and That'll be peaceful and quiet, and we love each other because he was a good man. Only problem with that is that you can't fix a memory of horrific trauma by putting in a nice, sweet little Sunday school picnic. It doesn't work. You cannot replace a traumatic memory with another memory unless it is full of the same guts and power and action, and in this case, of course, rage. That's right. When we create a new memory in which we kick ass on grandfather and get his apology and report him to the parents and get him off to some treatment center, when we have done all of these things, then we have truly completed transforming the memory. Now the client's body can open up to men, to love, to her husband, to the potential of real love and relationship. Now we can stop beating ourselves up and thinking of ourselves as somehow damaged goods, because we finally have rescued our past self from the evils of that trauma. And until we do that, all the talk therapy in the world is going to be ineffectual. I know this from 40 years of experience. Bingo.
Good.
All right.
It was very good.
Good.
Yeah, it was cool just hearing you talk about that for me.